Ever just like look at something in nature and think, how on earth did that happen?
You mean like the insane detail on like a butterfly wing or something?
Yeah, exactly. Or how about those crazy patterns you get on a seashell, you know? This deep dive is gonna kind of blow your mind because we're tackling a new kind of science by Stephen Wolfram, and let me tell you, it gets seriously wild.
Oh, Wolfram, yeah. He's the guy who makes you question, like, everything you thought you knew about, well, science.
Right. Okay, so you sent over some excerpts, and basically from the jump, Wolfram's like, what if our traditional science, with all its fancy equations, is missing something huge?
It's almost like he's saying those equations are just scratching the surface, right? Instead of explaining the thing itself, they're explaining the shadow of the thing.
Dude, perfect analogy. Okay, so then he goes on about how complexity might actually come from these, get this, simple programs. Simple programs, it sounds kind of crazy, but...
But when you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Like, instead of one massive crazy equation trying to explain everything, you have these little sets of rules just doing their thing, interacting, and boom, complexity.
And that's where Wolfram's own journey is so interesting, right? He wasn't stuck in that whole publish or perish academic world. The dude spent over a decade just messing around with these ideas.
And thank goodness he did. That freedom allowed him to, like, really get into the weeds of computation, explore those cellular automata without having to, like, write a paper every 5 seconds justifying it.
Which brings us to Rule 30. I'll admit, when I first saw it, I was like, okay, black and white squares, what's the big deal? But then
you actually read how it works.
and it's like, whoa, so simple yet.
Deceptively simple, right? One black square, white background. Each little pixel, black or white, and this rule, Rule 30, decides what color comes next.
It's basically like, if your neighbor is this, then you become that, but with pixels, and it creates this.
This totally wild, crazy, complex triangle thing. You'd never guess it came from a rule that simple.
Seriously, I could explain that rule to a kid, but the pattern it makes, no way I'd predict that.
And that's Wolfram's whole point. This isn't just some math quirk. He sees this simple rules, massive complexity thing everywhere we look. In nature, everywhere.
So it's not just one Rule 30, right? There are, like, tons of these rules.
Oh, yeah, a whole bunch. Each one governs how those pixels change, leading to, like, endless possibilities. Some simple, some crazy complex, but all from the same basic idea.
So from, like, one tiny square, a couple lines of code, bam, you've got art. It's insane.
But Wolfram doesn't just stop with the visuals, right? You sent this whole thing about number sequences, too, how he brings us into, like, the number world.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's where things get really, really interesting. He takes aim at this whole idea of randomness, what we even think is random.
Okay, because, full disclosure, I spent a lot of time as a kid with my calculator, convinced those random number generators were hiding a pattern. Was I wasting my time?
Maybe not. Wolfram argues that those sequences, they're made by simple algorithms, right? But they can have hidden structure, deeper than we often look.
Hold on, so even something like pi, which everyone always says is random, those digits go on forever and no pattern?
Even pi. Wolfram suggests even that could have some underlying program spitting out those digits. We just don't see it easily. Okay, now my mind is kind of blown. So what I think is random could just be complexity I don't have the tools to, like, decode yet.
Exactly. Our brains, they love patterns, but we have limits. What if underneath it all, there's this elegant program we're just not seeing?
It makes you wonder then, does that apply to other stuff? Not just math, but like art, music. That stuff feels random sometimes when someone's really good.
Oh, Wolfram goes there. He suggests that even like the Mona Lisa, the most amazing music, it could all be from simple rules we haven't figured out yet.
Okay, now that's controversial, right? I can see people getting fired up about that. But if it's that hard to grasp these rules, how are we supposed to even find them, according to Wolfram?
That's where he brings in computational irreducibility. Basically, some things, there's no shortcut. You got to run the program, see what happens.
So it's like I can have a cake recipe and know every ingredient, every step, but until I bake it, I don't know if it'll be any good. No cheating the actual process.
Exactly. Or like weather prediction. All the data in the world, but sometimes you just got to let the weather happen, you know?
Makes you think a lot of science is seeing what already is, not truly predicting before it happens. But if we can't always find these rules, is Wolfram's idea even useful? Seems very theoretical.
Right, and that's what some critics say. Too abstract, not enough real-world application. But then others point to, like, medicine, engineering, even finance, where this computational view is helping.
So, like any scientific idea, it's got fans and haters. But even if we can't crack the code every time, is there value in just seeing the world this way, through this lens?
100%. For ages, it was all about equations, right? And equations got us
Yeah.
far. But Wolfram's saying, what if that's just one tool? We've been ignoring a whole toolbox of possibilities.
It's like we've been so busy measuring the trees, we forgot about the forest itself.
Uh-huh.
And Wolfram's like, yo, there's a whole ecosystem of complexity here. What if there's a better way to understand it?
And that's what's exciting, right? Not ditching what we know, but adding to it, looking for these, like, hidden connections between things that seem totally different.
So where does that leave us? We've talked about simple programs, making crazy patterns, hidden order and randomness, how traditional science might be limited. For someone just hearing about a new kind of science, it's a lot.
Oh, for sure. It's not exactly like beach reading. Makes you think hard.
Mm-hmm.
But even without reading the whole thing, you can get a taste of Wolfram's ideas.
Like how? If someone wants to dip their toes into this world, where do they start?
Wolfram's website is amazing for this. They've
Yeah.
got summaries, explanations, even simulations of the stuff we talked about.
Mm.
If you like visuals, and let's be real, those cellular automata patterns are mesmerizing,
Mm.
you can actually see these programs in action.
Right. We talked about Rule 30, but there are like a gazillion of these things, all making wild patterns. I admit, I got lost on that website for a while. It's addictive.
Oh yeah, it sucks you in. But that's part of what's so cool about Wolfram's work. He takes these huge ideas and makes them almost playful. You can mess around with these programs, see complexity happen right in front of you.
It's kind of like those old spirograph sets we had as kids, you know? Simple gears, but infinite designs. That same, whoa, how did it do that feeling.
Exactly. That sense of wonder is what Wolfram's all about. Approach the universe like a kid again. Look for those hidden rules, the programs behind it all.
So even if his whole new kind of science thing doesn't work out exactly how he says, even if people are still arguing about it, he's given us a new way to see.
100%. He makes you question what you think. Embrace this computational way of thinking. Never underestimate simple rules.
This deep dive, it's given me more questions than answers, but in a good way. The universe is full of mysteries, right? And sometimes the biggest discoveries, they come from the simplest questions, just looking around with that sense of wonder.
Couldn't have said it better. Who knows? Maybe one of our listeners will be the one to take Wolfram's challenge, run with it, make the next big discovery.
Now that would be something. So if you up for it, grab a new kind of science, start exploring. You might surprise yourself with what you find. Until next time, stay curious and keep asking, what if?